Hey guys, it's Heather with Lead the Way Canine Training. This video is going to be just some basic e-collar instructions. So this is generally stuff we go over at the first lesson. So if you're a client, this should sound familiar. And my goal in making this was to help clarify or remind anyone who's having issues or having trouble remembering how something works or what the buttons do or even how to turn it on or how often you should be charging your e-collar. So let's start with the brand name of your collar is Dogtra. The model number of most of your collars, this is generally the one I use almost exclusively, is the 280c. So that's the model number. All right. This is the new packaging, so your box may look a little bit different. This is actually the first time I've gotten this new packaging in my last order. The old boxes were just all black, so don't be surprised if the box looks a little different. Anyway, so inside your box, there's three things that are important. There's your collar, okay? There is your remote, and then there is your charger, okay? Other than that, you don't really need to worry about the other stuff. There is a little owner's manual, but there tends to be more information in here than necessary. And I've had people tell me it can be kind of confusing because it isn't exactly giving you the same how to use instructions as I do. So feel free to read it, but if you have a question, just give me a call or shoot me an email, shoot me a text, or refer to this video. All right. The only other doodad in here is this handy dandy belt clip. So if you want to use it, you just attach it to the back of your remote, and then you can clip it onto your belt. I don't like it because it's just a little bit too snug, so getting it onto most of my pants is just more struggle, takes more time than I'd like, but feel free to use it. Okay guys, so let's go over the basics of how to use your new e-collar equipment. The remote and the collar need to be turned on and off separately. They also both need to be charged. So your charger has two ports. There is a rubber flap on the back side of your remote. And then there is also a rubber flap on the back side of your e-collar. You're going to plug it in just like your cell phone charger. Make sure you plug both the collar and the remote in. And what you're going to find is as soon as you plug it in and everything's connected, the lights on the collar and the remote are going to turn on, and they should be a solid red color. Now, once they're done charging and they're good to go, they'll turn to a solid green, so that lets you know that the battery's fully charged. All right. So to turn the collar on and off, to turn the remote on and off, you're going to hold down this side button. It's the only button that's blue. You're going to hold it down, and you will see that the screen turns on, and then the indicator light turns on as well. All right. To turn it off, you're going to hold down the button until you see the screen says off, and then it's off. All right, so super easy. Hold it down until the screen turns on. Hold it down again until the screen says off. Okay, that's all there is to it. Now, to turn the collar on, because this is one of the smaller models that they make, and that's part of the reason I like to use this model and this brand, is because it's a lot smaller than some of the other e-collars, so it's not so heavy and bulky on your dog. There's not a button. So what you need to do is turn it on by pairing these two together. So there is a red dot, which is a magnet on the collar, and then there is also a red dot on the collar. Now when you pair them together, you will see that the light blinks green, and then will continue to intermittently blink green. Okay? Now to turn it off, you're going to do the same exact thing. Pair them together, the light flashes red, and then I always check to make sure it's not still flashing. So that means it's off. That's all there is to it. All right. The battery in these is going to last about every 2 to 3 days. You'll need to charge it. It really depends on how much you use it. I find that the collars tend to die a little bit faster than the remotes. So you may need to charge your collar, and when you put your remote on, you may notice that it doesn't need any charge and it turns green right away. Not a big deal. I like to tell people to get in the habit of just putting them both on the charger every second night. Okay. Now, other things you want to pay attention to, especially if you're not getting into the habit of just charging them regularly, is how you can tell when the battery is dying. So, on the remote, I'm going to turn it back on for you. there's a couple of things, right? So on the screen, you can see that there's this little icon of a battery. Those cells will start to disappear, like your cell phones, when the battery starts to die. The other thing that will give you an indicator is the light here is blinking green. When it starts to die, it will change to an orangey color, and then it will eventually flash red. And then the same thing for the collar. That light will flash green, fully charged, orangey kind of amber color when the battery is starting to go, and then it will start to flash red before it's completely dead. All right. Usually, if I see that it's turning to orange and it's no longer green, the next opportunity I get, when I have a break in training and I'm not going to be using it with the dog, I'll throw it on the charger. All right. These guys charge pretty quick. It only takes about 2 to 3 hours to fully charge them, even if they're all the way dead. So you can always throw them on the charger, give your dog a break, and put them back on, and you're ready to go and do some more training. All right. One more thing to note is that when you plug them into the charger and put the charger in, it automatically turns both devices off. So when you take them off the charger, you have to remember to turn them back on. So I've had clients that didn't realize it did that. They put it on the charger without ever turning it off, so they still think it's on. They put it on the dog, and then they realize that the dog's not listening, and it's because they didn't turn the collars back on. All right. Other things that you want to keep in mind about using these guys. Fully waterproof, both the collar and the remote. So your dog can go swimming, he can be fully submerged, and you can still use this to call him out of the water. The same thing if you get caught in the rain, you don't have to worry about your remote getting wet, or if you drop it when you're hiking in a puddle or something like that, they're totally good to go. They have a half-mile range, meaning your remote can be about a half-mile away from your dog and the collar for the signal to still be working. I've never tested that fully because your dog really should never be that far away from you. So, but the thing to remember is that it's going to work at a very far distance, further than your dog should probably be away from you. Okay. We want to do a couple of things, or I like to do a couple of things to make this easier and more convenient. One is I like to put a carabiner clip. I'll show you the one I have on my hip right here. So I put a little carabiner clip, and then I can just clip it to any of the waistbands of the pants that I'm wearing, regardless if I have jeans and belt loops and stuff like that. So that's one thing I like to do. The other option is you can use the lanyard and put that around your neck. That's kind of annoying to me, so I don't like to do it. But if that's something you like, go for it. You want to get in the habit of having the remote on your person for the next couple of months, because you want to be consistent. The more consistent you are, the better training your dog is going to get, and then the sooner you can wean off of using this. All right, and that's important. The other thing that's important about being able to be consistent and wean your dog off the use of the collar is having your dog wear this as much as you can. All right, so dogs will get really collar smart really quick. If we put it on, use it right away, and then take it off when we're done with our training session, they're going to very quickly realize that it's this magical piece of collar equipment that makes them have to listen, and that gives you the ability to communicate with them even at a distance. So they will realize if it's not on, that you don't have that same ability to communicate with them and follow through. So I like to put it on first thing in the morning when the dog comes out of the crate, or when I wake up. Anytime I'm going to leave the house, the dog's going to be crated for an extended period of time, I'll take it off. But other than that, I leave it on all day. And then I'll just take it off at night before bed. What you do want to do is make sure that you rotate the location of the collar around the dog's neck. So don't keep it in one spot on the dog's neck all day long, because you do run the chance, especially with dogs that have more sensitive skin, that you might get some sort of a pressure sore. Right? It needs to be really snug. Both these contact points have to be touching skin for there to be any connection, so that they'll feel the stimulation. Okay. So I recommend, every 2 to 4 hours, just move it over an inch or two, rotate it to the other side of your dog's neck, and then you are less inclined to get any type of irritation. The other type of irritation you might see is if your dog gets soaking wet, or if you have like a really thick coated dog like our husky, who, she gets wet in the rain and she's wet for 5 days if we don't dry her. Take the collar off, make sure the dog dries, make sure your collar dries out. That way there's no moisture stuck there and you're not likely to get a hot spot. Certain breeds like golden retrievers are super prone for that kind of stuff, or any of the double coated breeds that tend to stay damp really long. Those are really the only types of irritation you may see. I have never seen them with any of my dogs or my clients' dogs. I have had people tell me that, you know, their dogs are more sensitive, and if they don't rotate it a couple times a day, that they do start to get a little bit of redness, irritation. So that's important, especially with the dogs that have thinner skin. All right. The other thing that I like to do to make this easier to wear is I put the collar on a bungee strap. So if you guys have a strap that looks different to this, that's because I like them a lot better and they're way easier to put on, and I think they look cooler because they come in different colors. But we want to make sure that it's making good contact. If you put the collar, you know, up behind the dog's ears and they run around the yard for a minute and the collar is moved down to below their neck or below their chin, then the collar's not tight enough. It shouldn't be moving on its own. The only time it may move is if your dog's like really vigorously itching their neck at the collar, then it may move, and it's probably not because it's too loose, but I would double check it anyway. All right. Now, back to the other buttons on the remote, right? We have the on and off button on the side. We have the button on the front. If you can see, it says pager. So that is the vibrate function. And if I turn the collar on, you will see what that means. So can you guys hear that? It's basically a vibrate like your cell phone. There is no adjusting that level, so I don't use it for anything other than to check that the collar's on before I put it on my dog. Most dogs, the majority of dogs, find that much more offensive and much more aversive than the low-level stim that we're going to be using. And because you can't adjust the level, there's really no way to fine-tune it to what your dog needs. Okay, so I don't tend to use that at all, except to check that the collar's on. Okay, the buttons we are going to use are the ones on the side. There's the top one that has the texture. That's the one we use most of the time. That is the nick button, and if you look at the textured little dots, it's in the shape of an N. So what that means is it's a momentary stimulation, regardless of how long I hold that button down. Right, you can see I'm still holding the button down. It's only going to give 1/25th of 1 second worth of stimulation. So a super quick touch, basically. Humans can't move that quick. That's why they program it to that length of time. All right. So to use it, you have to push it, let go, push it, let go, push it, let go. Okay. So we're going to use it in a tapping fashion. The button below does not have that program length, so you can hold it down for up to 12 seconds and the dog will get a pulsing kind of wave stimulation. So it feels a little bit different because it's not programmed and because it kind of continues on. All right. Now you can use that sort of like the nick button by just tapping it and letting go, tapping it and letting go, tapping and letting go. Okay. Or you can use it longer in longer drags or really longer drags, depending on what your dog responds to or what we've talked about in our training sessions. Okay. And that's it for buttons. The dial on the top is how you control your level. Okay. So that's how you change. Let's see if I can get you to be able to see this. Change your level. And the Dogtras go from level 0 up to 127. Now that doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, 127, that must like blow their head off their shoulders. It's the same range of stimulation that any of the other collars have. If you go to any of the big box stores and they have the collars that you can usually buy there, they have 10 or 12 levels or something like that. So their level 12 is going to feel about the same as this level 127. So what that means is that with this collar, and this is the main reason that I like to use these and not the cheap stuff you get off Amazon or in the stores, is that we can break that same amount of stimulation into 127 segments. So each adjustment, each increase or decrease of the dial is a much smaller change so that we can be really delicate, really subtle, and really fine tune the level that's just right for the dog in that moment. Okay, so that's important to remember. Other things to remember, right, we talked about it's waterproof. We talked about moving the collar. It needs to be on most of the time. You want to make sure it's really snug. Anytime you're using this, until we get to the point where we're off-leash training, completely off-leash with the dog, you want to make sure that you have have a leash or a long line on your dog when you're in training. Now, that doesn't mean if you're just letting the dog wear it around the house and you're not going to be using it, you don't have to have a leash on. But if you were to all of a sudden want to be able to use it and your dog does not have a leash on it, do not use the collar. Not until we've gotten to the point where your dog understands what it means and we've worked together to get rid of the leash. Okay, we don't want the dogs to be confused or freeze or not know what to do with it. And the leash not being there means that you don't really have any way to help the dog out. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any other questions, or if that wasn't clear, or you had a question that I didn't cover, give me a call, shoot me an email, or ask me at your next session. But if you have a question, I'd rather you ask before your next lesson. Don't feel like you have to wait to see me. But I hope that was helpful, guys. Have a great day. Bye.